Are you going to share your presentation with us later, or?
Yeah, I passed out a sign-up sheet, so if you want to put your email on it, I can give you a digital copy, and I have a few hard copies as well. Okay, so my name is Candice Keeling, and I work here at Home Realty, and I'm going to do a presentation on London because although I work here, I actually live in London. So we're going to talk about London trends, the type of tenants that you can rent to in London, a few examples with cap rates, and a little bit about me. So the London market is at a state of a rise right now. Even with multiple bids, the houses are going between 5,000 to 40,000 over. Even when I was looking at before I did this presentation, it was only $1,000 over list. So depending on the area, this number is very small for an over list bid compared to what's selling in Toronto. Also, there's a lot of talk about rapid transit coming soon. The details are still being discussed, but there is on April 12th another meeting with city councilors and the public to kind of discuss where the rapid transit is going to go, and that's kind of got a boost in the market as well. Also, I'm sure you guys know people can't afford it in Toronto anymore, so they're getting bigger houses in London than what they can afford here. The rental market has always been strong in London. There's 3 types of renters you can rent to. That's families. 12-month lease is the lowest return. Sometimes it's a safer investment depending on the family, obviously. Students, which is by the room, so it's a little bit higher return, 8 to 12-month leases. And then there's Airbnb guests. If you don't know anything about Airbnb, has everyone here heard of Airbnb?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can stay as short as 1 day with Airbnb. So do you need a license? In London, you do need a rental license. The initial application is $165 as of January 1st, 2017. You renew it every year for $55. If a fire inspection is required, it's $171. If it's a duplex, it gets into a little bit more complicated, and there might be additional fees, but that kind of just gives you an idea. If you want to look more into that on your own, you can just go to london.ca for more info on that.
Which license is required even if you're renting to the family, or?
It's required if it's 4 units or less within a building. Technically online it says it's not required for a condo. For some reason it's only for freehold standing buildings.
Freehold?
Yeah.
Even if it's a house, so we...
Yeah. Yeah, even if it's just a house only.
However, townhouse is not required. Condo townhouse is not.
From what it has online, it's not required for a condo. Yeah, I don't know why that is. It's just the way London is. I think they're basically trying to make sure the quality for freestanding houses is acceptable for tenants to live in. So it's for the protection of tenants. I think maybe there's already like that condo board is within the building, so someone's already watching that. So options for students in London, you could do all-inclusive rent, which the tenant pays exactly the same month to month, and the landlord's going to pay utilities, which can vary obviously. Or the rent is going to be paid directly to the landlord, and the hydro, gas, if they want internet, anything extra like that, they're going to pay on their own. But students are dirty, aren't they? I hear this all the time, like students are going to damage the house. I don't want to do a student rental. Things I like to remind people about student rentals are either their parents or OSAP, or they are working to pay their way through school right now. There are obviously students that party, but the majority of them are there to learn, and they don't want to screw up an education that they're going into debt for. Especially if they're getting their money from OSAP, which is going to be a loan, or if their parents are paying it, you might be directly getting checks from them. So you're not even really having to directly deal with the student themselves. 5 years ago on St. Paddy's Day, there was an incident in London. I don't know if any of you have heard about it, but a huge party got out of hand near one of the colleges. Since then, the London police have a hands-on approach. There have been only minor incidents. Very few things have happened since that time 5 years ago. This is from the London Free Press from this St. Paddy's Day. The police have a really good relationship with the public, and the students know that they can get specific tickets if they're drinking in public or breaking the law in any other way. So it's not as much of a concern in London because they have put a lot of measures into effect. Students in London provide 8 to 12 month leases of income. It's a lot higher than market rent for any families in London. You'll see as we go through. Benefits to student renting is the house doesn't have to be in perfect condition. Often the parents or OSAP is paying rent, and if the student is, they're working to pay the rent. Buy the room generally provides a higher income than when you rent the whole house out. Licenses in London are for 5 bedrooms max. We can talk about that after, and they're non-transferable, but all that means is that when you take over a house and there's already tenants inside of it, you have to just pay again to the City of London to get the license again in your name. It's just the way they do it. They get, obviously it might be like a money grab, but, and the next thing's insurance. You're obviously gonna need insurance for a student rental, so try an insurance broker for a variety. Just a quick example, a house by Fanshawe that just recently sold was 20 years old, 6 bedrooms, and it sold for $362,000 on the 25th of March. You can see it has like a double car garage. These houses are pretty new, so they look pretty good on the inside. Houses can be slightly cheaper. There's student ghettos, they're called. So in some areas, they're almost all private landlords that own these houses, and they're almost all rented out to students. There's pros and cons to it. The pros is it's almost completely rented like all the time. It's very hard for that area to not get rented. These are the areas directly next to the school. The cons is obviously a lot of parties can happen in the areas, but since 5 years ago, the London police have really cracked down on that. It's not as big of a deal. Western students. So Western University's been around for a long time. The programs are 3 to 4 years for undergraduate. Graduate studies bring in mature students. They're generally older homes by the university. They can pay more rent, but they are generally a little bit more expensive than by Fanshawe. And like I said, it's an older school. It's been established for a while. So Western, I got this off the UWO website. Western has grown into London's 4th largest employer. It's home to 4,000 staff, 35,000 students, lots of alumni. They're forever connected to the city. London is a student-run city. And the house, here's an example of a 3+2 bed near Western, 23 years old, was listed for $424,900 and sold for $440,000, so not too far off with the overbidding. And over asking means something very different in London than it does in Toronto. You need to know what neighborhood it is, obviously how many other offers there are, and some other factors, but the market is on the rise. More examples for recent examples are available, but because of people's different price points and different investors, that'd be something I'd go through with someone one-on-one. So book an appointment with me after if you have an interest.
So the Fanshawe and Western, they are different locations, that's
Yes.
why the properties are differently priced.
Yes. Yeah, they're different. Fanshawe's a college, has more of like the hands-on programs. They're generally 1 to 2 years, and Western has the undergraduate degrees and graduate degrees. It's in an older area of London because it's been there for a long time.
So that's a better area where Western is, whereas this
It's more expensive depending on, because obviously the age of the house, but the area is more expensive and it is better resale value, and you can get a little bit higher rent than in the Fanshawe area. And there's also 4 other students I wanted to talk about was North American Trade School. These people are on a 1-year program or 6 months, it totally depends, but there's also a private police college, there's private aesthetics colleges, and other private colleges. So there's just a boatload of students in London. What's the point? The point is there's a constant flow of renters in the city, always. These students have to live somewhere for at least about 8 to 12 months, sometimes up to 4 years of studying, so why not your property? Now we're going to touch on the Airbnb. In the Airbnb, you have the option to rent out an entire unit. If you do that, you can do what's called like the Airbnb business travelers, and you can book people that are on business trips. You can rent out by the room and have a cleaning company come in and be responsible for cleaning the main areas. Or you can rent out by the room with a live-in property manager. Airbnb insurance. Okay, I'm not an insurance expert, but I'm just going to give you guys basically, they have Airbnb insurance that's up to $1 million liability for host protection, and it may cover sometimes if guest damages the building. I've been hosting for a year and a half, and I've had some things covered and some things not, so it really is situation specific. I've had no major damage in my experience. But you shouldn't just only get Airbnb insurance, you should also make sure you have other insurance. I know that Square One Insurance specifically will give you coverage for an Airbnb house, and I also have an insurance broker, Dwayne Gagne. His contact info is there and you can get it after, and he can go to multiple different companies and find out where he can get you the cheapest rate that covers an Airbnb type investment. Just a reminder, I'm not in the insurance business. I recommend you get 3 quotes from someone who knows exactly what they're talking about. I just want to touch on that because I think it's important that you look into insurance when you're doing this type of an investment. Okay, so my business model includes having a live-in manager who stays there at a discount rent. What I do is I write up in a release. I have a bunch of different clauses involved. The one person that lives in there is then going to be responsible for cleaning the house, taking the garbages out, watching the app, because everything for Airbnb is on an app, accepting the bookings, doing the room flips. I call it room flips, is when you have to like change the sheets and make sure everything's ready to go for the next Airbnb guest. Things to note is London, Ontario is full of pockets. So one side of the street could be significantly nicer than another side of the street. So when you use me, I know which areas are the better pockets to invest in and which areas are more difficult to sell in when you go to resell the property. Also, the different kinds of tenants you attract depending on the location is a factor. So I'm just going to talk about myself for a little bit. When I was in third year university 7 years ago, I bought my first